back to Blender Sushi Live Noding. In this episode, I want to show you this simulation node setup using geometry nodes in Blender 3.6. It's a simple setup. Basically, if I hit playback, you can see I have this empty basically. So this empty on frame 1, if I move around the empty, you can see there's like a bunch of particles or like a like a structure that if I step frame by frame, you can see it's kind of spraying like a particles. Okay, so it keeps building up. If I move this over there and keep going with simulations, it's gonna keep building the structure similar to, maybe you have seen something like this, maybe ants or termites made these kind of structures. So the setup is pretty simple. I'm still experimenting. I'm not like the most advanced geometry nodes user, but the idea is here. There's a bunch of nodes. I don't actually need this one. I can delete that. The one that's doing the job is this simulation zone, and inside this there's this node group with a bunch of nodes. Okay, it might look scary, but it's actually really simple. So let's try again this time. So we have these empty positions and it's spraying some points. Okay, and the nodes that's really doing the job is this Raycast nodes. This Raycast nodes is actually taking the position of the empty, and the empty is kind of spraying the points to in a minus z axis that has been multiplied with random value. So I can control the spray, and yeah, and the output of this Raycast on a hit position that's hitting the ground, which is this default cube, it's gonna spray a bunch of points. I can specify maybe like 20 points, so less points now. And inside the simulation zone, it's gonna continue looping on every frame at a random seed position. And every time it's doing that, it's gonna join the new geometry with the old geometry. So that's why we have this kind of spray ability. Okay, so I can move the empty around, and then it's gonna keep building up over time. So yeah, it's actually really simple, and it's gonna keep doing this. Probably it's gonna get slower and slower over time, and it's gonna get higher and higher depending on the position of the empty at the moment. I can put it somewhere here. Probably in order to make this more efficient, we can kind of remesh. We can remesh the volume, or in this case, it's really just building up the volume over time. So the voxel value, maybe adaptivity can be increased, or the voxel radius can be increased. I don't know. So I can move the empty once again. Okay, so this time it's less resolution, so it's a lot faster, and I can build my termite structure this way. So the way I get here, actually, so let's save this. It seems really complex, right? If you just look at the simulations. Okay, how do we get here? I mean, I decide to wrap it inside node group, so it's much simpler to see what's going on. But the way I set it up at first, it was like this. Okay, first of all, I'm using this basic geometry setup without the simulation. So it's just like the original floor objects that's joined together with this Raycast. So again, it's an empty position, goes into the Raycast, and we are looking at the position, and then we use the ray directions that has been scrambled using random value, and so it's pointing down. So this already works. Okay, what's happening next, I just select all of this and then Control G. So I'm grouping those simulations, and I like to pipe in the seed value. So I have this ability to simply, okay, this is like simplifying the nodes. So I can still randomize the seed. I can actually control the ray, how much spread the ray have. Okay, so this can also be piped out if you want to do that. So if I was testing this idea, maybe I could then maybe duplicate this, right? So we have 2 geometry, 3, 4, and I can join each one of them. So you can see the spray is kind of building up. I can randomize the seed, so I know, oh, okay, it's actually working. So I can actually rename this group, maybe the spray, I call it the spray, or the termites is building up this structure, right? So we want to put this inside simulation zone. So this is the original geometry going in, and I want to insert the spray inside it, and then the output should go there. And I believe this should work. I mean, let's see. What did I miss? Okay, we need to have join geometry inside the simulation zone, and then pipe it like this, and then maybe using time frame scene time, plug into the seed. So every frame it's gonna get random seed, and it's spraying our okay, it's working now. So it's building up very quickly. Let's get rid of this now, we don't need it. So now our node setup looks really simple. So we can reduce the spray or increase the spray. We can also specify the number of points. At the moment it's 81. Maybe reduce that. Maybe pipe this out as well, the count, and then the density and the voxel amount. Maybe reduce this voxel amount to 30. So it's going to be less resolutions. Let's see. For our ground plane, I just increase it. Okay, now it's working. Okay, it's actually building up really fast. And the closer it is to the empty, the more resolutions we're gonna get. So we kind of have like a interactive simulations that make this to 5000. If we want, let's also set up material to material, maybe to make it clear. So this is outside the simulation zone, so I will give it a material. Okay, let's see this one, material 2. Material 2 is pink color, right? Okay, then now it's much clearer. Okay, so it's spraying, basically like the spraying particles, and it's keep building up over time. So it's like a kind of like a dynamic sculpting, but it's interactive. I just like this ability, and really the Raycast is doing the job for us. In the near future, I mean, actually, you can modify this geometry setup in a way that you can actually control these points around, and you can kind of have like a sculpting tools that's interactive, maybe. Yeah, I think that's should be pretty cool. So we have this maybe set smooth for our structure there. There seems to be like a separated geometry. I don't know why, but it's kind of interesting anyhow. So every, maybe I can, you can always remesh it after the fact. But anyhow, yeah, I have to tweak the setup, but you get the idea. So now we have this ability, we can control the number of points that's being sprayed, we can control the spread, and run the simulation, spacebar, and we can build our termite structure. We can actually build this up like that, and then we can move to new areas and spraying, continue spraying. You can move this thing around and build a bigger structure. It's kind of funny when it gets closer and then you just move it slowly. It gets slower over time, so that's probably, I need to tweak the nodes so it can be more efficient. At the moment, I think it's really building up multiple surface objects. Maybe there's a way to just combine everything. What I mean is, if I finish with this and then right click and convert to mesh, and then F3 separate by loose part, I believe they are all made of different random objects. Okay, so this is probably, that's why it's getting slower and slower, because we have lots of objects being generated every single time. This is kind of cool in itself, but it's gonna be more efficient if we just combine all the points into a single objects instead of having almost 10,000 objects. So yeah, there must be a way to do that. But at the moment, it's really building layers. On every frame, it's kind of spraying new surface objects. So maybe that's why it's so slow. Oh, I know why. It's also building up the ground floor. Okay, maybe not. But this can be made more efficient. So maybe I need to consult Arindale for this. But anyhow, that's the idea anyway. The spray, just using the basic Raycast nodes. Everything else is pretty basic. Maybe the points, volume to mesh. Maybe we can combine the mesh before we can combine the points before we convert it into mesh every time. So maybe that's gonna be more efficient. But that's pretty much it. This ray simulations simulating this termite house. So hopefully you find this interesting. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.